what we're going to do is the reverse. We're going to take a decimal degree and convert it into degrees, minutes, and seconds. But the idea is going to be the same as what we were just doing. So on this first one, we have a 46.75 degrees. So just like in the reverse direction, that first part, the 46, is going to stay the same. So we'll start out with a 46 degrees, no matter what. What's going to be changing is that second part, that decimal part of your degree, the 0.75. That's going to get converted into possibly minutes and seconds. At the very least, it's going to get converted into minutes. So let's see. So I'll start off with our 0.75 degrees because it was a 0.75. And we need to say, how am I going to turn it into minutes first? I need to work my way back downwards. Well, remember that every 1 degree has 60 minutes. So when I'm multiplying by my fraction, this time I'm trying to get rid of degrees. So the degrees are going to go on the bottom. So the 1 degree goes on the bottom and the 60 minutes goes on top. So that the degrees will cancel out this time. What does this mean I'm going to do this time? Well, mathematically speaking, what that means is that I'm going to multiply my 0.75 and my 60 and then divide by 1. So let's see, what is 0.75 times 60? Well, that's going to give us 45. And a 1 on the bottom. But remember that this time our units are in minutes. So 45 divided by 1 is just 45. So that gives us 45 minutes. So that means my degrees here, which was 0.75, got converted into 45 minutes. So what I'll leave is my 46 degrees will stay the same, but my 0.75 is now 45 minutes. So my final answer here is 46 degrees and 45 minutes. Now we're able to stop here because the minutes came out nice. They became a whole number. Had the minutes been a decimal, we'd have some seconds. But because we got a nice whole number for our minutes, we're done. And we don't have to worry about any seconds at all. Let's try another one. Let's take a look at B. In B, we have 175.255 degrees. And we know that the first part, the whole number degrees are going to stay the same. So the 175 will stay the same. So we'll leave that as 175 degrees. What's going to change is that decimal part, the 0.255. And the question is, will I get minutes and seconds or just minutes? Well, we need to start out with working our way smaller first. So we're going to just start with our decimal, which is 0.255 degrees, and getting out our minutes first, if there are any. So we'll do this again. So we'll multiply that by the fact that every 1 degree has 60 minutes. And again, that means the degrees will cancel out, but we'll have minutes left over. Well, multiplying this out, the 0.255 times 60 ends up being a 15.3. Let's see, a 15.3. And remember, our units now are in minutes. Now this is technically divided by 1, but when you divide something by 1, it doesn't change anything. So we do have a decimal answer here for our minutes. It means that there are going to be seconds. However, what we're going to do is we're going to pull off the whole number, which is the 15, and that's going to be however many minutes we have. So we're going to leave that as a 15 minutes. What we do need to do is we need to take the other 0.3 minutes and now take those, and that's what's going to turn into our seconds. So these are 0.3. This is 0.3, and don't forget that this 0.3 is minutes right now, and we need to turn those into seconds. So we need to go one step further. So we're taking minutes and turning them into seconds now. So we need to remember that every 1 minute has 60 seconds. And what this will do is now cancel out the minutes and leave us with seconds. So what we need to do for this particular one is take the 0.3 times the 60. Well, 0.3 times 60 is going to give us 18. And again, that's in seconds. And it would technically be divided by 1, but dividing by 1 will leave it the same. So that's going to be our 0.3 minutes are now turning into 18 seconds. Notice we didn't get a decimal, and we shouldn't be, so we're going to leave that as 18 seconds. So our 175.255 degrees gets converted to 175 degrees, 15 minutes, and 18 seconds. And that's our final answer, is that 175 degrees, 15 minutes, and 18 seconds. And that is a perfect final answer. Continuing along, let's take a look at what are called quadrants and quadrant angles and all sorts of things. So normally we talk about starting out with our first quadrant, which is where both X and Y are positive over here on the top right. That's our first quadrant. And then what we do is we work our way around counterclockwise to quadrant 2. Then keep going counterclockwise to quadrant 3. And keep going counterclockwise to quadrant 4. And we can end up going in a loop and continuing, but when we go in a loop, the next one we start back over at quadrant 1. We don't call it quadrant 5. So we just call it 1, 2, 3, and 4, even if we go around the circle several times. Now, notice the first quadrant starts at 0 degrees. That means where you haven't gone anywhere, because your starting should always be the x-axis over here where you've got off to the right. Then your first angle at the end of your first quadrant is a 90-degree angle, because that would give you a right triangle. Then the end of your second quadrant gives you 180, because that would be a straight line. Your next quadrant 3, ends at 180 plus a 90, which is 270. And going all the way through the end of quadrant 4 actually gives you a full circle, which is 360 degrees. And you can keep going past that full circle, even past the 360 degrees, but you'll still land in the first quadrant. And below is kind of the picture of those, where you've got your 90 degrees, your 180, which is your straight line, your third quadrant, which is 270, and your 360, which is a full circle. But what you should be again noticing is that all your angles are going in counterclockwise motion, because they are all positive angles. Remember, we only go clockwise if we're actually got a negative angle. But notice where we're always starting our angles from is always that x-axis at the beginning of the first quadrant. You should always be starting your angles there and then working your way counterclockwise. Okay, some vocabulary.